So now I'm going to kind of quickly go through each of these components that, we can kind of leverage to activate some of those goals and some of the things we've talked about so far. So obviously imagery is a big important part of what we do. And no matter what kind of marketing you're doing, whether it's on social media, whether you're simply talking about how we use tools like Pet Finder or Adopt a Pet, or your own website, any of that comes down to a visual. It's really hard to get someone to learn more about a pet if there's no photo, right? If there's no photo on that profile, or if we post on Facebook or Instagram with no image, it's nearly impossible to get the attention that that animal deserves. So I want you to think about how photos and images can also really, really drill down into an animal's personality, right? So this lovely grumpy-faced cat, we immediately have a jumping off point. And even though this cat doesn't look super happy in these photos, we immediately have a reaction. And it's usually laughter, and that laughter, that kind of moment stops people from scrolling past this photo and immediately opens the door to a deeper conversation so that people can learn more about this particular animal. When it comes to imagery, I also want to be sure to say, Heartspeak has a ton of photography resources that I really hope that you will explore. We have guides on how to use your digital camera a little bit more effectively, and also your cell phone. But no matter what your tool is in your toolbox, I want you to really focus in on, yes, that we can all improve our photos. I think that universally we can always get better. Even professional photographers are constantly working at getting better. But I don't want you to be so focused on the imperfections of a photo or what you don't like about it, to the point where you're losing sight of the value of it. And this photo is a great example for me. This was at a workshop that we were doing teaching photography. And this dog was very fearful and was actually had an advanced heartworm, and they were looking for a hospice home for her. So the photos that we were going to get of her were really critical, just to being able to network her and get her into a home. And she was very scared when she came out, and they were, the staff members kind of warned us that we're not really sure, like, if we're going to be able to get a good photo. She just hasn't been super engaged. Well, while we're setting up our, our shot and getting the settings right on our camera and kind of discussing that, this sweet dog just kind of tipped right over into the volunteer's arms. And we could have gone into this, quote unquote photo shoot thinking, I want it to look a certain way, or I want to, take this shot in a certain angle or something like that. But this candid moment of this dog just kind of melting into her arms is much more magical than any of that other stuff, right? So it doesn't matter in this photo the dog's not looking at the camera. It doesn't matter that maybe we're not perfectly on eye level with the dog. This has so many other emotions attached to it that ultimately help this dog go to a hospice home very quickly. And so I want you to just kind of remember that I think we all have examples of that kind of story where maybe the image isn't perfect, but it does a perfectly good job of getting the animal out. I also want you all to embrace a little bit this idea of being in the photos. And I know that's such an uncomfortable thing for most of us. I know that, speaking of not letting perfect be the enemy of good, a lot of us are like, this is not a perfect situation. My hair, like, I've been working really hard today, or I'm covered in poop, which always seems to happen at some point, right? But I want you to think about, because we all care so much for the animals, the value that we give to the animals when we're able to be in the photos like this. The connection that happens in this kind of photo is, again, just so incredibly valuable. We could put that little dog on a beautiful backdrop and take a stunning photo, but it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be as magical without this connection. The other part of this that's so important is touching back on this idea of storytelling. So having an ACO in the photo with her badge and the logo of the organization, and being able to break down stereotypes about the staff who work there, about the image of animal control officers. This is all really important as well. So really consider this kind of bigger storytelling element. Here are some other examples of how you can kind of execute having a person in the photo. It doesn't always have to be you know, a whole person. It can be having feet in the shot. It can be a hand scratching on a head. It can be something much more candid and less staged. So just keep all of those options in mind and don't rule anything out. This is, again, just one of my favorite photos. And again, if you're a member of the community in Atlanta and you see this kind of image, not only are we drawn to that puppy, but we're also, you know, drawn to an organization whose staff members care so deeply for the animals. And I think sometimes we have to be able to show that to the community, especially for those community members who maybe haven't thought of the fact that they're really, truly amazing, caring staff members. Along the same lines of don't let perfect be the enemy of good, I would love for you to just kind of consider the kinds of photos that you have on your phone of your own pets, and how being able to see those kind of candid or real moments for the public is also really valuable. So things like using a Snapchat filter or an Instagram filter, or if you have a field trip program, encouraging content from the people who are participating in that program, so that you can show some of these real life out of the shelter moments. And of course, long-term fosters, really encouraging them and getting them the resources that they need to feel more comfortable taking these kinds of photos, like the ones of Mary Jane on the screen here. This is another kind of just last shout out about imagery that I would love to make is you know, not being afraid to break the rules sometimes. So we started off this chat about positive marketing with that image of the puppy behind the fence. And I think that many of us really make an effort not to take photos through the bars and things like that, just because we are working so hard on the image of our shelters. But in this case, I think this is a perfect opportunity to break the rules. So this dog and this little girl are having such a connection, even through, you know, the gate there. He's listening so hard to reading that book, that this is the perfect opportunity to tell this bigger story about, you know, a program that your shelter is doing, or the value of being able to offer this to the dogs. And that is more important in this case than the fact that the photos from behind the gates. So I'm not going to go over each one of these, but I do want you to know that we have a bunch of nice cell phone quick tips here, as well as a blog that we'll link to at the end of this presentation, specifically for fosters, especially at this moment in time, you know, with COVID-19 happening and the fact that so many animals are being moved into foster. I think it's really important that we kind of pass along these skills to our foster homes so that we can continue to get really good marketing material. Also, some quick tips on video. I'll let you kind of explore these when you get some of these slides, but just keep in mind that there are a number of amazing tools available, and that if you're going to post video to things like Facebook, make sure that you're uploading directly to Facebook rather than sharing a YouTube or a Vimeo link or something like that. The video is going to perform much, much better if it lives on Facebook itself. And also just keeping in mind the length of those videos. Very few people have the patience anymore, sadly, to watch videos over 30 seconds and definitely over a minute. So just keep in mind some of those kinds of tips when it comes to being able to create video. Here are some examples. I'll let you kind of explore these on your own. Again, you can click on each one of these and get a peek at each one of these videos, which for different reasons, you know, one is a little bit more staged and someone talking to the camera. The other is completely candid of a vet tech kind of comforting a pet who's waking up from surgery. But both of these have an incredible amount of value in that they kind of pull back the curtain, show a little bit more of the activity of the shelter, and show, you know, really importantly, how deeply the staff and volunteers care about the pets there. And that kind of care, when we show that, is contagious. It's really, people are more likely to want to take a chance on adoption when they have that experience of, you know, seeing how much someone else cares. So now I want to kind of switch gears and talk a little bit about the voice that we use, because this is another really important tool to creating good marketing opportunity, is the way that we write, the way that we talk. The first is to just realize that every photo that we take, every post that we make, even the ones that are sometimes just funny and engaging post or a funny photo or a really cute video, all of those are opportunities to constantly be kind of pressing those buttons of our goals, right? So a cute video is not just a cute video, it's also an opportunity to get more people following along with what your organization does. And the more people following along, the more opportunity you have to make a connection that will result in an adoption or volunteerism or a donation, etc. I also, when it comes to our voice, want to encourage you guys to also not be afraid to keep it simple. It doesn't always have to be an overly complicated message. And for some of your organizations, depending on the size, it's also really hard to be super elaborate with things like write-ups and bios, because sometimes we just don't know that much about the animal. This is the perfect kind of social media post for me. This is a really short video. This is Egg McMuffin eating peanut butter off of his face in slow motion, which is just the most magical thing that I've ever seen. And the caption to go along with this is so simple. This is Egg McMuffin. He loves peanut butter. He loves scratches on his belly. Egg McMuffin is a giant goofball, and we have all fallen in love. Adopt Egg McMuffin. And you can immediately see how many people have kind of reacted to that post and how many people are just moved by it, right? There's a lot of good things happening in that post that are just happy, fuzzy feelings that ultimately not only give you a good feeling about Egg McMuffin, but also about the shelter itself. I also, and think this is probably the most important thing for us when it comes to voice and the language that we're using, is this idea of the animal welfare bubble that we live in a little bit. So I want you to just really briefly consider what it was like when you didn't work in animal welfare, if you can remember, or volunteer in animal welfare. We didn't know words always like TNR or dog reactive or resource guarding. Like that wasn't always part of our vocabulary. But it's so much a part of our lives at this point that we have a really hard time remembering that not everyone speaks this language that we speak. And I think one of the things that happens for us sometimes is that we alienate people by either using jargon or, bringing an air of, you should know this if you're a good pet owner to the conversation. Whereas if we're able to open our arms up a little bit more, bring people in and have the courtesy to kind of explain different concepts to them, then we're able to connect with more community members because we're not immediately shutting the door to a conversation with them just because we think that they should know better, or we think that they should be speaking our language. It's kind of our responsibility when it comes to marketing communications to make sure that rather than having an expectation that other people should learn our ways, that we should learn how to better communicate with them. And I also just want you